Good evening, friends, and welcome back to the show once again of Mirror Wisdom Reflected. As you know, the name Mirror Wisdom Reflected comes from the fact that we have some very intelligent people, some people who have achieved a lot, who have a lot of information, who are leaders in their own respective field, who share so much of knowledge that they make us more wiser by the end of the show. So here, I act as a mirror to reflect the wisdom from all our honored hosts, whoever is coming on as a guest. It's a very important time right now in a very crucial juncture that India is passing through. And the world is worried about this, just a repetition of the show which was happening earlier on. People are scared. The media had its own frenzy last week over the weekend. And you know what happened exactly. That the COVID scare was made so big by each of these media people, and each one shouted louder than the other, thinking that they're going to scare people. The markets went in a frenzy. Everything went down 10%. Wisdom came along, and people didn't know that before the bomb really happened, the ice bomb which happened in the United States, everybody was worried about the COVID bomb coming up. The timings are so similar. The scare has been so huge, and the media can play its own part. Remember the Chinese New Year a couple of years back, and that's when everything started, went on to Rome, Italy, Europe, US, and the things spread up big time. And we all know, and we know that for sure, that we will never get correct information from China. We may keep hearing that they will stop the number of deaths being reported. We will never get the correct information. It could be Wuhan, it could be whatever. But few videos which are leaked down on the internet, the big dark web, will tell us that yes, there is a situation. But at the same time, the Chinese economy is opening up. People are moving freely. And he's done a great thing right now at a very important juncture. He stopped people from going out. People revolted. They said, no, we have to work. He said, okay, welcome, join the gang, work. And then you had the huge COVID wave and screening everywhere. That the wave has spread like hell everywhere. And lots of people, Chinese people, you've seen those hospital scenarios where people are dying. They are on the beds. They are between two beds. There are people taking oxygen on the road. So what is the true scenario? Where do we stand? Now, what I'm showing you here on sharing my slide here is the latest, which I've just got about half an hour back. And this is from Bloomberg, which says that Milan reports 50% of passengers on China flights having COVID. Now, this is where we stand. You know, we are having problems. We are seeing what's going on in the world. The news are conflicting. And I'm not giving you WhatsApp messages, not things on that, but from reliable sources, PTI, Bloomberg, whatever that we can get, some piece of information is coming. All the precautions that we took, all the wisdom that we generated from the Delta strain and the other strains. What is going on? Which strain is it? Because this virus is very smart. It knows how to mutate. It knows how to work fast. It knows how to survive very well. It knows how it can fool us. And as nature would have its evolution would have it, you have various mutations happening. A lot of mutations, the BA1s were very friendly, user-friendly. So instead of using a vaccine from Serum Institute or wherever, the virus came and gave you a vaccination. It's beautiful. That helped us tremendously to cope up for the past year or so. But 2023 doesn't seem to be over with it. We have to live with it. And I'd said this in my show almost 2 years ago, that we'll have to live with the virus. People thought the virus will disappear. No, it's going to evolve. It's going to change. But like in evolution, if it kills you, it will also die, like the Ebola. So it will not kill you. It will be smart enough to survive symbiotically. It wants to stay with you, thrive on your blood free of charge, and see how it can propagate itself. So you're not going to see the end of the COVID. No vaccine, each time it changes its form. We create the antibody cocktail for the Delta virus strain. And then a lot of people started taking for the BA variant. Well, it didn't work because the cocktail was meant for the Delta variant. Now it's coming to a stage where it might be coming to our shore. We kind of disregarded that in 2019 when it was coming over. We thought only China was getting affected. Europe was getting affected. We in hospitals got the news that there were no beds in Rome. and the doctors had to choose whom to let them live. It was kind of unbelievable. Believe me, it was like, for me and most of us in the hospitals, it was like some cooked up news in WhatsApp factory which was coming up in life. But well, we saw what happened. So let's start with some important facts of life. Where do we stand? And we have our dear friend, a very intelligent person, somebody who has worked very hard in the past. We have had him on our show. Dr. Tushar Shah is a very popular physician, a thinking physician, a humanist, a humane approach to life, conservative, and he can use the AK-47 whenever he wishes to. Well-read, he has some great quiz masters. He is multifaceted, that I can swear and tell you. He reads a lot. He's coming out with a book soon on medicine. But you've seen him all across India on television shows for humor. So he's got a great sense of humor also. He's got great memory. So he remembers those shairis offhand. So we're going to have some good shairi shows. You know, it was not just Manmohan Singh presenting his budget, giving shairis. We'll have Tushar also. We'll not leave him for that. Tushar Shah, thank you so much and welcome on the show this evening. Thank you for being with us from your valuable time.
Thank you, Dr. Himanshu. Lovely coming back. Yours is a beautiful YouTube channel, and I'm glad to be here.
Tushar, let's have a small recap of what happened. We met, you know, the recap after 2020. We learned a lot. Earlier ventilators, and then no ventilators, steroids, no steroids, to vaccine, to where have we? Can you give me a small recap of what's happening in the last year, year and a half?
Definitely. As you remember, we saw our first COVID case in India in January 2020. It started in 2019. That's why it's called COVID-19. We had our first peak with what is now called the ancestral strain, which originated in Wuhan. And this first peak, of course, gradually started in March, peaked in September or October, and gradually declined by December 2020. After that, there was a lull. And after that lull, around, I think we had 3 or 4 months of reasonably low levels of COVID. And then the Delta wave struck. The Delta virus, the Delta variant originated probably in India. And the Delta variant struck us around April, May. And by June, July, August, we were kind of very, very badly affected by the Delta wave. This is, I'm talking about 2021. So India saw the second wave caused by Delta. This Delta wave gradually declined by, say, November or December end. And on the 11th of November, a momentous event occurred. 11th of November 2021, South Africa detected its first Omicron variant. It was probably first seen from a sample from Botswana. So then from that point, 11th November 2021, it started spreading across the world. And India was severely affected in Jan-Feb of 2022. So we saw the third COVID wave with Omicron, and within Omicron, we have seen 2 major waves. We call them Omicron wave 1 and Omicron wave 2, if you like. So the lag, the most important thing I think here is to understand the lag period between a surge in India and the origin of the virus elsewhere. So if November 11th was the beginning of Omicron, and January was when we were affected majorly, we are talking about a lag of 45 days before it traveled to India in a big way. This is an important period to remember, the lag period. So Omicron first wave was in January, February. The second Omicron wave with another variant started in the end of May, and we saw that in May, June, July of 2022. And that, of course, was also a large wave. And then now we are seeing a lull in Omicron. We see maybe lesser than 1,000 recorded cases in India. Mumbai is showing 4 to 9 cases, recorded cases per day, which is, of course, an underestimate, as we can understand. But recorded cases are very few. Now what happens is we saw the first, we saw the lockdown being removed, or the zero COVID policy from China being removed on the 7th of December 2022. A good date to remember. 7th of December is when China declared that it was going to nullify, in effect, the zero COVID policy. 7th December, cases started climbing in China. We do not have a good estimate because the data is missing, but we are probably looking at anything from 250,000 cases per day upwards in China. Maybe a few, 1 million cases per day in China are happening. And that surge, if it started on the 7th of December gradually, we are still in India on the 29th of December, which is only 3 weeks. So we are still a few weeks to go before we can really say whether or not this surge will affect us or not. I will tell you what I think, but first of all, let me give you the data. Now, after the China surge, we saw surges in other Eastern countries, Singapore, South Korea, especially Japan, Thailand are seeing surges. Japan, a small country relatively, though a crowded country, is seeing a huge number, more than I would say more than 1.5 lakh cases per day, 150,000 cases per day in Japan in the last 1 week. So we are seeing a large surge. About deaths, we are again short of data. Japan, I will tell you, Japan has reported about 415 deaths in the last 1 week, which is, compared to the number of cases, is not great. But at the same time, Japan is a very, very old aged population, so they are more susceptible to serious COVID. We don't know the number of deaths in China at all. There is just conjuncture. Some people do say that there are more than 5,000 people dying every day in China, but that is yet to be confirmed. So now, this is the overview, Dr. Himanshu, as to what is happening, what has happened so far.
Tushar, now that you're saying China, we will get it. We all know that we have a lag. We get enough time to prepare. We are very fortunate that this strain has not originated in India, and we are getting enough time to prepare ourselves. Which strain is this? Is it the Delta? Is it the Omicron? Is it the BA? What is it? How infective and how deadly is this virus this time?
Again, about the strain, the information coming from China is sketchy. It's of no surprise to you, I suppose, that there are more than 650 known sublineages or varieties of Omicron. More than 650 varieties of Omicron, and Omicron is just about 13 months old. We're talking about nearly 2 Omicron variants coming up every day within Omicron. Now, obviously, not one variant is causing the surge. China was completely locked in. They did not have any previous Omicron wave of any sort. So they are susceptible to any subvariant or any sublineage of Omicron. We talk about their vaccines being less effective, their population being less vaccinated. So China would be affected by Omicron, no question about that. Any Omicron variant. The news is that BF.7 might be the variant that is predominant in China. But remember this, it is not all BF.7. In India itself right now, we have XBB and BA.2 prevalent, and there is no exclusivity within, and different countries have different variants currently ongoing. USA has something different, etc. So yeah, I think China will export whatever variant it has, and we will be affected to a small or to a limited degree.
So we don't know which variant is affecting right now. We are not for sure. But looking at the video scenario, there are 2 parts which I'm getting. From the industrialist circle, friends whom I talk to, who have a regular business with China, they are saying that work is going on as normal. People are accepting as normality. Whereas the videos, and of course, the media loves to show the negative. So the videos which we see are highly fatal kind of videos that we are seeing. that a lot of hospitalization, a lot of people with all kinds of agonies around, and a lot of deaths being reported. Is there some truth that you've been able to find from scientific literature?
No, I have not been able to. There is a good website called medscape.com, which gives fairly authentic information. And I do think that Medscape is giving figures of 5,000 deaths per day. But remember, China has a huge population. You're seeing a huge number of people affected. What I do think is that a significant majority would be getting minor illness, which is why work can go on. The workforce is young, and therefore the young workforce may not be significantly affected, and they will continue to work in the factories. I do think China is allowing people who are unwell to go to work. So I think we are relatively again seeing what we saw in India. We saw Omicron cause a lot of problems, but hospitalizations were nearly absent, and deaths were rare. So that must be the case in China, even though their vaccine has not been great. I think Omicron virus, as you had said earlier, itself has learned not to kill people.
Yeah, so that is because one more thing that China has done, after 2 years, they have opened up their borders. So traveling is, you couldn't see Chinese in the last year and a half traveling internationally. You couldn't see Chinese. Earlier on, you could see Chinese tourists everywhere. You couldn't see them. Now they opened up the borders and people can travel easily. Now that is a dangerous thing. What about Japan? What kind of strain that you think? Because Japan has also got affected this time. And we would get authentic news about Japan, what's going on there.
Yeah, Japan does release excellent figures, but I do not know about the strain. Frankly, I have not read anywhere about the strain. If you know, let me know. But I have not read what kind of variant Japan has, if it has one predominant variant or not. But it is having a surge. About the China opening up travel, I was just reading about how many flights come in from China to India. So while there are no direct flights from Beijing or Shanghai, the two principal ports, more than 50 or 60 flights per day enter India, enter Mumbai only from China via Singapore or other places. And I do think we will be, sometimes I think that the lag period will be shorter than the lag period we saw in the first Omicron wave. So I think we might, if there is a surge, we might be seeing it by the 10th of January.
Yes. So we might get a surge elsewhere from Europe also, because with the cold winter setting in, viruses thrive across countries over the years during the winter season, and you have all kinds of viruses really taking advantage of that. And having said that, this variant coming up, how for a common man to distinguish between the normal virus affecting you, any other strain which was affecting, and an Omicron affecting you, what would you say? How would one distinguish?
It's a very important question. Yeah, an excellent question. I think we must do this properly. If anybody gets fever, cough and cold, after we start seeing a surge in India, then one must not fail to, one must test oneself for COVID. Now, this is something I've been stressing even during the Omicron waves. People would say, why should I test? It's going on everywhere. I think once you know that you have COVID, there are many symptoms related to long COVID that we can diagnose better. The doctors can diagnose better. Long COVID, as you know, are symptoms that persist beyond 3 months of the first, the primary infection. So one reason is that. Second reason is, of course, it helps you keep away from elderly people or people who are immunosuppressed. So if the surge affects us, and if you start getting fever, cough, cold, do the testing. Now, between rapid test at home and RT-PCR in a lab, I think if there is a new surge, the RT-PCR will be better. We really don't know if the kits that we have, the rapid kits that we have, will detect the newer variant, whatever the variant is. So I would insist on people doing the RT-PCR once a surge starts. Call the lab people at home if you can afford to and do the test.
Friends, very important point that Dr. Tushar Shah mentioned right now. If I have to repeat it in very simple terms, we haven't got the surge, but if at all there is a surge which can happen in the next 6 to 8 weeks, and as you start hearing about more cases, if you get fever, cough, cold, or some symptoms of any viral infection, get yourself tested for COVID without fail. And because the government had restrictions and you would be reported to the BMC and there would be house arrest and all that kind of thing, people were scared to report to the government and they were not doing RT-PCR the previous time in the last few months. They've been used to doing antigen testing. But here again, Dr. Tushar gives you a very valid point. With the new strain, we are not sure whether the antigen testing at home will pick it up. Might as well that you might do a RT-PCR, which is a short way of proving whether you have Omicron or not for yourself, but for your dear loved ones and your family members, especially senior citizens, children, and people who are highly susceptible, who are immunocompromised. So I guess that is a very important take-home message. We are going to be hit by this wave, maybe in the next few weeks. We don't know how severe it might be. Hopefully it is not. But, well, if things are good, we are not worried about it. We are worried only about the downside of life. The upside, we are not really worried about ever. So get yourself tested. We are just kind of preparing. We'll come back with a live show if there is any at that time. But something, a take-home message, which is very clearly given and well said also. So once you've taken all these boosters, now, do we have any study that how long these boosters have really worked for? What is your immune status with respect to these boosters which you've taken in the past?
One thing is the vaccines that we have in India right now, Covishield and Covaxin, were prepared with the Wuhan strain, and they have not been prepared with the Omicron strain. When the first Omicron wave came in January last year, in January 2022, we realized that vaccinations, 2 doses, did not protect against Omicron. They say that it protected against severe Omicron, but severe Omicron anyway was very rare for us to have any statistically significant data in India. So I think boosters of that old strain are not useful. As you said before, the Omicron infection, which possibly affected maybe 90% of the population of India, is asymptomatic or symptomatic. Omicron in their first wave or the second wave of Omicron, a large population got infected. That itself acted as a booster, and that was a better booster because it was an Omicron virus booster. So I think we should not there are only few situations in which I would say currently the booster is useful, what we call a precautionary dose. Now, this is against what I'm saying is not exactly the recommendation of the government. If you have taken 2 doses and if you have had Omicron even once, no booster is necessary, not even the bivalent booster of Moderna, which is available in the US. If you have had no Omicron infection, have taken 2 doses, take the 3rd dose only if you are immunosuppressed, more than 65 years of age, or have very severe disease like very poor heart pumping, kidney failure, etc. So, and I'll repeat this because it's important. If you have had COVID and taken 2 vaccine doses, do not take the 3rd dose, please. If you the 3rd dose of even the bivalent vaccine, which is possibly going to come, and if you not had the infection, and if you are immunosuppressed or very senior, take the 3rd dose if you have not taken. Taking the 4th dose, which some people are asking me about, is senseless because we still have the old strain. Can I put a word in about the nasal vaccine here?
Yes,
Dr. Himanshu,
that was my
there
next
is this
question. What about the
intranasal
nasal
vaccine which has
Yes.
been, there's an intranasal vaccine which has been introduced by Bharat Biotech, I think. I think it is, the logic of the vaccine was that it will give surface immunity, meaning it will produce IgA antibodies in the nose, in the nasal mucosa. And at the entry level, prevent Omicron from spreading. I think the vaccine has no efficacy data. The only data we have right now is safety data, that it is safe, and the safety data is a few months of safety. But I'm sure that there is no efficacy data yet, and I'm sure that because this vaccine is also produced from the old ancestral Wuhan strain, I would strongly recommend not to take this vaccine as a third or fourth dose. No.
Tushar, very bold statements. Really appreciate what you are saying. This is not easy for somebody to speak up on an open forum like this. Much appreciate your genuine input, and this is exactly why we invited you here. Important point, friends, again, that we don't need to take the booster. If you have taken 2 shots in the past, and if you incidentally, fortunately for you, got a mild infection, you got the best possible antibodies in your body. You don't have to worry about it. You got good amount of immunity there, so it wouldn't bother you. The vaccination was for the Omicron. We don't know the strain, whether it's a BF7 or a XBB variant, or what do we have at this point in time. Don't rush in to take that. And with respect to the nasal vaccination, which he says was, which means that if I wear a mask, it's as good as taking a nasal vaccine. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying? It's going to protect me locally from entering?
An N95 mask will be far better than the vaccine.
Good.
But unfortunately, the N95 has to be worn all the time to be as effective or better than the vaccine. Yeah, but I do think that the efficacy of vaccine has not been demonstrated. And like the Covaxin, original Covaxin of Bharat Biotech, this vaccine also had a slightly more hurried approval than I would have wanted it to be.
Yeah, so it is safe, is beyond doubt, but whether it is efficacious is a question of reliability. We don't know. We don't have answers to that, and that is what we are looking at. Safety is incidental, but let me ask you.
Even Jal Niti is safe, right? So yeah. No better than that.
No, nothing better than giving a Jal Niti, removing all the toxins, whichever, and clear off your nasal and the sinus area, protecting and covering it up, and not staying in crowded areas, closed crowded areas, which we might have forgotten, because now that traveling has increased phenomenally, airports are full, everybody in a vacationing mood, all hotels are full, all hotel lobbies are full. The central air conditioning system has not been installed with HEPA filters as yet. Few hotels in the US have HEPA filters, but we don't have HEPA filters in most of the 5 stars or 7 stars also. So keeping it an open area with your room open with cross ventilation is a fairly decent idea that we have. So wearing a mask definitely helps you. There is nothing wrong. And an N95 mask with X number of days, not a dirty mask, wearing it over the nose, not the mouth. These are things which people have still not, understood, and they've been doing whatever they wish to. But wearing a proper mask is still a definite criteria of helping you. And he says that what if someone hasn't got COVID as yet? Any vaccine needed or boosters, Tushar?
So 2 things here. One is USA has given 3rd doses, 4th doses, and now 5th doses probably to many people. And I think one basic flaw in that whole thing is they demonstrate that the antibody levels reduce after 3, 4, 5 months of a booster, and therefore you should take another booster. Now, they don't take into account something called the cell-mediated immunity, that the T cell mediated immunity. I know that there are many non-medics here, many medics here on your channel. May I take a couple of minutes just to explain this, because this bothers me. There are 2 principal forms of adaptive immunity. One is T cell immunity, and the other is B cell immunity. T cell immunity, we call it cell-mediated immunity, has been largely ignored because there are no great tests for testing the level of T cell immunity against Omicron or any COVID virus. So all they test is the B cell immunity, which produces antibodies. You must remember we have something called memory cells, both B memory cells and T memory cells. and they're beautiful in protecting you if you have already been exposed previously. So when you get the Omicron virus, and if your body has already been exposed to a small quantity of Omicron virus, then your body will produce immediately, with the help of these memory cells, new antibodies. So even if the measurable antibodies are low, which becomes an excuse for giving a booster, you must realize that any new infection will be a boost to your immunity by itself. And I really am upset at the US stance of giving too many boosters.
Tushar, very important and very, very interesting point which you mentioned, the T cells and the B cells and the memory cells. The memory cells are the sleeper cells who are your friend. They are not the terrorist sleeper cells. Now, these sleeper cells, if they are awakened when there is an enemy attack, they suddenly multiply and they have already got the memory to fight those guys. Is that correct, what you are trying to say? And they will even though if you measure them, the dosage may be small, your percentage may be small, it will multiply rapidly and it will kill the viruses on its own origin if you have had the original immunity. But a corollary to this, Tushar, if I haven't had the original COVID, but I have taken a shot of the vaccine, which was supposed to have a longevity of say 3 months, 6 months, we had no idea. But now 2 years later, do we have any idea how long will it last?
I will repeat, what the vaccines that we have got are the vaccines which are made from Wuhan strain and which did protect against Delta also. The vaccine that we got did not protect against Omicron. I believe that we got away with Omicron simply because it mainly affected the upper respiratory tract and did not cause pneumonia. And therefore, I think the first 2 doses that we all took do not protect us against Omicron, but a lot of Omicron has happened even without our realizing that we got Omicron. A lot of Omicron has happened in India in the last 2 waves of January and June, and we should be assured of at least some immunity to fight the third surge if it happens from China fairly well with mild infections.
Well explained, Tushar. One more question which is very commonly asked is the flu vaccine. Or if you take the flu vaccine as a corollary to a neighboring friendly virus, you take a regular flu vaccine, which we have been taking over the years, would that help you against this, or a tetravalent flu vaccine help to build cross immunity against the coming COVID wave?
So the flu vaccine, first of all, will not protect against Omicron. That is one thing. However, I strongly recommend that while Omicron is going on and intermittent surges might happen, everyone, it is recommended for everyone, any age, I think about the age of 2, everyone should take the flu vaccine. Our flu, we are in the northern hemisphere. There are 2 types of flu vaccines, the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere vaccine. Though we are in the northern hemisphere, our season of flu matches that of the southern hemisphere, meaning we don't get flu in the winter season of USA, meaning November, December. We get flu principally in the monsoon season, which is winter, say in Australia. We must take the flu vaccine of the southern hemisphere, and it usually comes in April or May. It's an annual vaccine. It has to be taken once a year. It's an injection, 1 shot every year. And the one advantage of this is, remember, influenza is more likely to cause serious illness and even death than Omicron. So that is one reason to take the influenza vaccine. And second is, if you've taken the influenza vaccine, you probably will be able to diagnose other fevers better. If you get cough, cold fever, then you will suspect Omicron even more if the influenza vaccine has already been taken.
So friends, again, here, the influenza vaccine, which he's talking about, which should be taken, and we have the maximum, and like there is compulsory, if you go to the US or the students going to US for studies, I know that you have to take the flu vaccine without questions. It's a standard norm being followed. Our flu vaccine, our flu comes up more during the monsoon when everything is dirty and things are there. So you have enough time to take it. But the point he's mentioning is that the influenza pneumonia, Over the years, we have seen more deaths occurring because of the influenza and pneumonia. And if you know that that vaccine works very well without any side effect, it's worth taking it. Forget any kind of cross vaccination. It may not help you against the Omicron, but it'll help you to, because you don't want 2-3 infections together. If your immunity is low, you will have a Kasab and you will have an Afzal and you will have whoever in this world coming and chadaving on you. So your immunity has to be protected, and protect yourself with the antibodies from wherever you can, so that ultimately you have one virus to fight if at all it becomes more nasty for you. So very, very interesting point. Flu vaccine to be taken. You're not sure how long the immunity of the previous vaccination would be lasting. And that too, the vaccination was for the Delta variant. We don't have anything for the Omicron or the new BF7 or the XBB variant or whatever variant that we are going to be having. I think this is very clear. Protect yourself with the mask and what you can. There's an interesting question, geopolitical, being posed right now, Tushar, on the media by somebody. Very intelligent question. Is the new variant, if B7, human engineered by China? Well, nobody is going to ever say that. The rumors can't be ruled out. If we have to be on absolutely nice on this show, no viruses have misbehaved like this in the past 2000 years. This virus has a mind of its own, and it just doesn't come just like that. Opening the country for tourists, massive issuance of passports to Chinese citizens to make them travel are indicators of geopolitical activity. Well, on a different ground, if we were to talk about that, we are avoiding politics and religion here. But the way scenario is, you wouldn't be surprised if people could be doing that. If you look at it the other way, a great economist friend of mine was telling me very interesting yesterday. He said that by allowing all this to happen, the Chinese have a great buying power. They'll start buying stuff and the inflation will go up. If the inflation goes up, you will have more pressure from the US dollar, that the US dollar index will increase. And over there, they will start putting more interest rate. And so the interest rate over the world will be affected. Now, wow. Now, the geopolitical scenarios beyond me to understand and comprehend. Russia on one hand says that it wants to have peace settlement. And today itself, it lambast more than 100 plus missiles on Ukraine. Well, so this is not a podium where we'll be able to answer. We have some very smart people who will answer on that, some other podium, some other time. But with respect to travel, to Tushar, would you give any kind of travel advice to people?
This is my suggestion. In India, we will know the picture, I think, by 10th of January. I'll repeat what I said. China, a surge, and India affected by that surge might be around 30 to 45 days. China surge started on the 7th of December when they stopped the zero COVID policy. So around 7th or 10th of January, we will have some idea about a rise in cases. It may not be a big wave, but we will see a noticeable rise in cases if we are being affected. And I feel that we will be affected to some degree. That degree cannot be measured, cannot be predicted. So I would say that if you're planning a holiday, say in the next few weeks or months, hold on to the thing, because you might have a setback in your planning. I also have seen so many people getting so badly affected in last Omicron 2 waves. When they traveled, they got stuck. It is no fun. So I would say, even for the sake of our economy, if you plan travel, plan within India and not abroad. And if you go abroad, for example, Singapore, and suddenly what happened is from the 1st of January, everybody entering from Singapore has to have a negative RT-PCR. If you travel to Singapore for a holiday, and if you get stuck there with a positive RT-PCR, and remember, you can get stuck for several days to weeks, it will be a disaster financially, mentally, everywhere. So I think hold on to international travel. Keep Indian pleasure travel for India. Business travel, again, I would say, we have now learned to work from home. So for a few days to weeks, till we know better, try to avoid traveling. Similarly, if you're planning a very high expense wedding within the family, a very high expense event in a corporate scenario, maybe you would not want to commit your money completely and keep things on hold if possible. All this is conjuncture, but we have all seen disasters happening in our plans last year. So I think wait for a few days, just a few days, maybe 10 days, and we will know more.
Self-medication at home. This has been from kadas to everything that has been from Ayurveda to all that has been done and been taken. Any recommendation that you would have for self-medication for people?
First of all, I must give a very basic information that COVID is a virus and antibiotics are for bacteria. Now, this fact has been forgotten by doctors, by laypersons, by recommendations by government hospitals, by protocols of COVID centers. COVID is a virus. Antibiotics are for bacteria. Antibiotics do not prevent secondary bacterial infection in a viral infection. Please do not take your azithromycin or your any such drug, doxycycline, CV. Please do not take antibiotics for COVID. For COVID, you have to take symptomatic treatment. You have cough syrups if you want cough syrups, inhalations if you want inhalations. If you have fever, you have paracetamol, and you have nasal sprays for blocked nose, etc. No antibiotic. That is one message, that we have been a country of criminals amongst doctors, amongst quacks, amongst laypersons, a country of criminals who have used antibiotics indiscriminately, making many good antibiotics probably useless for future generations. Please don't do that.
Hi. So friends, very clear message. Don't mess around with antibiotics otherwise also in life. Don't take half-hearted course. Be very clear that this is a virus. There are basically 3 enemies that you have overall. Let's not confuse. I'll repeat for the common man. There is bacteria, there are viruses, there are fungi. So fungal infection is, if you get those black spots in your nail or various kind, fungus can happen in a bad diabetic, in debilitating conditions, and a terrible infection can happen, fungus. Viruses are those small RNAs, DNA, very small microscopic stuff, which can enter anywhere and create havoc at places. We really are lacking making those antivirals in our body. We don't have great immunity, including herpes virus, including so many other viruses. We don't have too many antivirals. Let's be very clear about it. Antibiotics have no role whatsoever in virals. And all the seasonal cough, cold, flu that you get now, and maybe during the monsoon, is most often than not a viral infection. So use that as a last resort. If you have coexistent bacterial and viral, take an antibiotic as prescribed by your doctor, but do not misuse. It's like DDT not working on a cockroach anymore. Most of these bacteria become resistant. They are very smart. Nobody wants to die, and especially human and across the world, the way bacteria, viruses have survived over centuries, they have learned to face their worst enemies. Remember in our COVID show, the first time I said that if mankind was not smart enough to overcome COVID, we don't need to survive. We'll be dinosaurs. But we are always proved ourselves to be smart when all the brains get behind it. So we could overcome that, and we've forgotten that at one stage we thought we would be defeated. There'll be huge deaths in this world. Well, it isn't. So don't take your antibiotics. Be very clear about it. Be careful what you take. Tushar, question is, should we take a flu vaccine now or wait?
Sorry, can you come again? Should we take a flu vaccine?
Flu vaccine now or wait?
Okay. So the flu season of India has nearly gone. So if you do take a flu vaccine now, it may help to a very small degree. Remember, this flu vaccine prevents flu in some years up to a degree of 70%, in some years up to a degree of 40%. It's not a foolproof vaccine, but definitely does reduce the severity even if you get the flu. So if you take the flu vaccine today, you remember that you will have to take it again in April or May when the summer vaccine comes, when the southern hemisphere comes. So you can take the vaccine. The vaccine has no significant side effects except maybe pain at the local site, half a day of fever. So yes, if you are frail, elderly, you've not taken the flu vaccine, do take it even now. Otherwise, wait till April or May.
So ideally, unless you are a susceptible candidate, don't take it. 95% of the population need not take it now. Take it more after your summer is over and the monsoon season is starting, is what a clear message Dr. Tushar is saying. Tushar, what is immune escape phenomena? Something which people have been wanting to know.
I think one of the most fundamentally important viral attribute in case of COVID is immune escape, and that is what is driving all the new surges. For those who are laypersons here, immune escape means that the virus escapes the immunity in the body, the immunity that was called adaptive immunity, the immunity that was made in the body because of either vaccination or previous infection. So as we said, if you have had a previous Omicron infection, you are probably protected against severe future infections. The virus knows that you have managed to kind of have some protection against Omicron. So the virus changes itself. It's like a Lego brick. Some bricks will fit into some slots, some will fit into some other slots. The virus changes its Lego attachments and manages to fool the cells of the body, which otherwise would have killed the virus by its antibodies, to still enter the cells. This is called immune escape. What we are bothered about in case of new sublineages or new variants of Omicron is that they come with a greater and greater immune escape mechanism. So if BA1 came as the first Omicron, for example, then BA4-5 learned to escape the immunity. That is why many of us got Omicron twice. We got it in January and we got it in June. I myself have got it twice, despite vaccinations and previous Omicron infection. So a lot of us, despite one Omicron, got it second time. So can we get a third Omicron infection? All of us. Yes, we can. If the variant has immune escape against the previous sublineages, then we can get. So which is why I think the unpredictability lies in this. Many people say that BF.7, which may be the predominant Chinese virus, has already been in India and we had detected it in some months back, say August or something. And therefore, we Indians are exposed to BF.7 and therefore we are probably not going to get this surge. I think there is an incorrect assumption there. One assumption is that it will remain BF.7 and not go into a further sub-variety of BF.7. As I said, there are two sublineages happening every day on an average within Omicron. 650 varieties of Omicron have existed over the last 13 months. So I don't know whether we will get the same one that has already come here. There will be some, because the virus is smart, there will be some variations, and therefore we must be prepared to get the infection. We may get the infection despite our vaccination status, despite our Omicron past infection. We'll get it in a mild manner. And my advice, therefore, are related to masking, because none of us are fully immune to a new surge. My advice related to masking is, if you are in a crowded public place after the surge comes in, do wear a mask. And if you wear a mask, try to make it an N95 mask. Remember, cloth masks or surgical masks may reduce the viral load and therefore will be beneficial to a degree. But there is nothing like N95. So if you have an important thing coming up, an exam, or if you are elderly, or if you are immunosuppressed, N95 mask is the way to go. But remember, again, I'm repeating, the surge will be apparent. After that, you take your greater precautions. Stop going to weddings, stop going to restaurants, stop going to movie theaters. Remember, movie theaters are still open. And I think we should not kind of be scared right now. Take precautions as soon as we know that things are moving in a negative fashion.
Great, Tushar. So don't get scared. Continue with your lifestyle. We don't have COVID in India as yet. We will tell you when it comes. You will know when your neighbors and your neighboring buildings start getting it. As of today, taking precautions, be wary, be informed, but don't spread panic. There is nothing to really trigger a panic button or the red button. Tushar, the next question is, should we be taking the pneumonia vaccine?
So there are very standard recommendations about the pneumonia vaccine. Again, I'll give you the basics for people, especially who are not doctors. Pneumonia is a bacterial infection of the lungs. The commonest organism causing pneumonia is called pneumococcus. There are two vaccines available to prevent pneumococcal pneumonia. One vaccine is called PCV13 and another is called PPSV23. I'll say 13 and 23 to make it simple. All of us who are about the age of 65, all of us who have some disease of the lungs, all of us who have some chronic disease of kidney, liver, heart, whatever our age, all children who have diseases which are chronic, all such people are recommended to take the pneumonia vaccination. The first vaccine to be taken is the 13, PCV13, and the second vaccine after a period of up to 1 year, you have to take the PPSV23. So yes, if you are a candidate which falls into these categories of susceptible individuals, you must take the pneumococcal vaccine. It's a no-brainer. You cannot not take the vaccine if the conditions applied are applicable to you.
The pneumococcal vaccine, should it be repeated every year, Tushar?
No, the PCV13 vaccine, the more expensive 3,900 rupee vaccine, is a once in a lifetime vaccine in most situations. The PPSV23 vaccine is often once every 5 years, sometimes a little more frequent depending on the disease that you have. So there are very strict criteria based on, and you can get the criteria on, say, CDC website if you like. But your doctor will know the regimen that needs to be applied to you.
Yeah, the important point, friends, that the vaccine for the pneumonia vaccine, the flu vaccine needs to be taken every year, whereas the pneumonia vaccine for susceptible candidates and people above 65. If you have all kinds of lung diseases or you're asthmatic, you have ILD, you have any kind of lung fibrosis, you have anything else, you're always better off taking a pneumococcal vaccine. There is no downside to it. It'll protect your lungs from getting infected and further scarring of the lungs would be protected. So the good take-home message with respect to that. One more question which is written down is practice of pranayam. Of course, as Tushar would say, it's a no-brainer. Pranayam, the good old pranayam of Indian standards, is never harmful. Every which way it would be beneficial, whether it is a doctor, it's a common person. Practicing pranayam would be good. The lung capacity, let me explain a little to your friends. The lung capacity is huge. What we use is 1/3 of it by average breathing. We just use this much. With pranayam, we can increase the capacity of oxygenation of the body to almost 2/3 more. So all your dead areas of lung, which have secretions and bacteria resting in those non-specific places, would die with that oxygen. They would be hyperventilated. You would have blood reaching there. You would kill those bacteria in those dead spaces of lung. They would open up. Your chest muscles would learn to expand. They would learn to breathe well on a bad day when your lungs are not functioning well. So practicing pranayam on whatever ground, there is zero negative side effect. So doing it, fantastic, fabulous, especially in a condition like this, doing it again, good, no question. So somebody said that as doctors, jurisdiction, it's not jurisdiction of that, it is absolutely the jurisdiction of every human being to continue doing that. One more question is, got relatives in the US who wish to travel to India. Should they undertake travel? My dear friend, let them understand that they will give it to us. We are not going to give it to them. So we are more susceptible by them coming here rather than them being susceptible coming to India. This was the most idiotic question earlier on that people used to ask a year and a half ago from the US. A lot of people canceled their travel to India, but India was relatively way safer at that time than what US was. And well, for the US immigration authorities, they have never asked you for RT-PCR. They have allowed everything to happen openly. They have not looked at anything, even in the worst possible time. They have a fairly good system organized there. So you could travel there, they could come here. They are very well protected here. So travel from US should not be a problem. Tushar, one question last is there something called endemic COVID?
Yeah, so we have what is endemic? First of all, what we are going through is pandemic. Pandemic is something that affects most of the countries of the world, and COVID has affected more than 200 countries of the world. An endemic disease is a disease that is in one place for a long time and will come periodically. For example, in Mumbai we call it endemic for dengue and malaria, and so we see dengue every monsoon. For years now, we have been seeing dengue every monsoon. So when we say, will COVID become endemic? We are asking, will COVID be seen every year in a particular season in the country for years to come? And yes, it will become endemic. Ultimately, the pandemicity will, of course, gradually die down, as probably because there will be no further more virulent variant probably coming up. So Omicron and its varieties will become endemic is what most people think. So yes, and therefore Omicron, will it occur every year? Meaning, will it be there every year? Yes. Will I get Omicron every year? Maybe. So yeah, my worry is this: Omicron is not like the common cold. Many people believe that you become like the common cold. It's not like the common cold. Omicron, somehow the virus gets into the body in some people and stays in some cells of the body, like the heart, like the brain, and causes what is called a long COVID. Now, this is not something that the common cold does. Common cold does not cause long common cold. So, long COVID is something that worries me. It can cause anxiety, memory losses, sometimes rhythm disturbance with the heart. So I don't know. I don't know how we can prevent the incidence of long COVID. Difficult to say that, but that is the main worry that I have with Omicron. How much will be the long COVID incidence?
Friends, very important point subtly that he has mentioned. This virus, we still don't know 90% of its feathers. It has a lot many colors, different shades of gray, but it is gray all over, and we don't even know how many shades it has. We have uncovered a few of them, from the Delta to the Omicron to the BA XYZ. But if it goes and affects various tissues, you don't really want to have it. Don't get scared. But yes, it has had its effect. Tushar, a frank question again. The side effect of some of these vaccines that everybody said, that young people dying, clotting, how far is it true in your practice that you've seen, besides the statistical deviation?
Yeah, so there are, again, the side effects depend on which kind of vaccine you use. The vaccines available in the US, the two principal vaccines are what are called messenger RNA vaccines, the Pfizer one and the Moderna one. They have distinct side effects from our vaccines. The Pfizer and the Moderna ones are probably causing not a small number of myocarditis. Myocarditis is inflammation of the heart muscle occurring due to the vaccine, principally seen in young people, more seen in males. And this is a worrisome side effect because myocarditis, which is inflammation of the heart muscle, sometimes leaves behind scars in the heart. And these scars can cause later on either a pumping issue or a rhythm disturbance, which can even cause sudden death. So these vaccines have come under a slight cloud because of myocarditis. Now, since the pharma lobby is very strong, the data regarding myocarditis has not been probably realistically portrayed. But many countries have given a fairly good data of the number of myocarditis cases that have happened. That is about Pfizer and Moderna. The Indian vaccine, again, Covishield and Covaxin are different. The Covishield vaccine, which is a vaccine made using an adenovirus, this vaccine, one distinct side effect has been clotting in the veins. Small veins or large veins can get clotting. This is called thrombosis, venous thrombosis, and brain venous thrombosis has been shown. I have seen a few cases. It's not something that is not heard of. It is uncommon to rare. and therefore I have never discouraged people from taking Covishield during the Delta wave. But I am discouraging people to take it now in the Omicron wave, simply because Covishield is a vaccine from the older virus, and the side effect to benefit ratio becomes a little more skewed. So I would say that side effect bothers me now in the Omicron times. Covaxin side effects are not really delineated. The problem with Covaxin is the data is not great of either the efficacy or the side effect. So I have been, unfortunately or fortunately, I have been against giving Covaxin to anybody, and I have strongly in all my talks recommended against Covaxin and gone in favor of Covishield as against Covaxin. This is something that is again uh, not something that is my view, a view held by many virologists. The data of Covaxin has been very poorly presented, and even WHO has had problems with Covaxin. Brazil has had problems with Covaxin. So I'm not really a fan of Covaxin. But the side effect profile, if somebody wants to take a vaccine and it is not indicated, I tell them take Covaxin. If you are insisting on taking a vaccine, take Covaxin. So the side effects are probably lesser than Covishield. But where side effects are less, effects are less. So I think that is the
Yeah. So
Himanshu
iatrogenic,
seems scandalized a bit, but
yeah. So iatrogenic causes why you can have side effect of vaccine. Despite having said that, there is nothing without a problem. There is no gift for us in its hands without a gift. So there is no question about it. But the good effect of the vaccine on lakhs of people, to give them the right kind of antibody at the right time, to avoid huge number of deaths, no question, it has been a successful attempt by mankind to create vaccines. It's, yes, we found side effects. Everything would have side effects. We accept it. We deliberate on it. We try and learn from it. But that shouldn't put you off from science. And we have willingness to put it across that, yes, there could be a problem. And how can we sort it out? But majority side effect has been less. It has been a friend rather than a foe. And that's so important. Tushar, a parting question. Sudden heart attack in young people, is it vaccine or is it the COVID virus itself?
in India, first of all,
We lost you, Tushar. I lost your voice. No, not yet. Not yet. So, yes, friend, we have seen that yes, I'm back. You're back.
yeah. So I do believe that we are noticing young heart attacks more. Maybe they are the same as before, but every case becomes more well known through the media. So I'm not sure about that. But having said that, can COVID itself cause rhythm disturbances in the heart? Yes. COVID causes myocarditis, inflammation of the heart muscle, and therefore you may get rhythm disturbances. These young deaths are usually arrhythmia deaths. Arrhythmia deaths meaning they're not due to blockages in the arteries, probably, but they're more commonly due to rhythm disturbances in the heart. So we have to probably take it in that sense. COVID can cause myocarditis, and we can have myocarditis due to the vaccines which are in the West. So yeah, both situations are possible. West definitely Pfizer vaccine and Moderna can cause myocarditis. So yeah, I think we have more data awaited before we can say what is the cause of young deaths.
So I would summarize it that the young deaths always used to happen in the past also. How often we have heard even before the COVID scenario came up. So yes, it could have happened incidentally, but one, as a matter of precaution, if you've taken the vaccine, then don't go suddenly very high on exercising regularly and big time weightlifting and or a marathon. If you have had COVID, wait for 3 months for the body to recover before you push yourself to the limit. The classical story of Lakshman Rekha, the boundary line, if it goes for a 6, you're a hero. And if you're caught inside, you're a 0. And everybody will curse you. So you be careful. Don't push your limits unnecessarily if you have just suffered from some kind of infection. Use common sense. It's not as bad. We have got a lot of immunity amongst us at this point in time. We have herd immunity also. The new virus strains, the virus has been smart. We have taken our vaccines. We have taken our precautions. We have learned a lot in the past 2 years how to deal with the virus, rather than when the lockdown came, we didn't know how to deal with the situation. So we would know what to expect, how to go ahead and face the situation. I guess all in all, it's not bad news. We will have a wave. We have to be careful. Using your mask. Don't panic to take more vaccines unnecessarily. Don't start antibiotics. Don't stop your travel too much. Be careful in big gatherings and spaces. You know what has happened in the past. Go home on a good note. Things are not that bad. There has been a lot of exaggeration. We haven't seen much in Japan. You haven't seen too many deaths happening in Japan. It might be spreading. We might have waves and waves and waves coming overall. But it's not as bad as what has been made out to be quite often in the media, and the negative news which keeps circulating on WhatsApp. Because positive news never create headlines. Only the negative news create headlines. Tushar, would you like to say a few words before we end up today?
No, not really. Not really. Again, I say that a surge of some sort, if not a large tsunami, a small wave is expected. And we have to be prepared for that kind of thing. And I would like to end with the shairi, if you permit.
I'm looking forward to shairi. I would not have left you without that. No, Tushar, I'm losing you. Tushar, I'm losing your voice. You got to start all over. No, we're still not listening. We can't get you. Your connection is no. We are missing your. Not yet. Yes, now? We got it. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, your shairi.
Yeah. So, since this talk has been a lot of conjuncture and with data which has been not याद आता है कि कभी-कभी यूं भी हमने अपने जी को बहलाया है, कभी-कभी यूं भी हमने अपने जी को बहलाया है, जिन बातों को खुद नहीं समझे औरों को समझाया है.
Yeah, so the ignorance of medicine, we call it iatrogenic or idiopathic. And so we don't know many things, but we have the courage to admit that we don't know. And there are many things we don't know and we would like to know. And that is why all these sessions would be there. Thanks, Tushar, for your time, and much appreciate your knowledge, your depth, your understanding, your frank opinion. And friends, it was a wonderful time. I'm sure it's a lot of learning. If and all we get a wave, we are somewhere in the middle. We will have another one on a very, very short notice to see how we deal with the situation. Things could be fluidic. We are always ready to learn whatever scientific literature gives us. We'll have more experience internationally to see what can we do and how can we manage the situation. All in all, don't panic. This is not the time to panic. We don't have a wave coming immediately for the next few days, 2 weeks at least. We'll keep in touch. We'll have a small bump here and there, a small speed breaker, but it shouldn't be that bad overall. Thanks so much for being with us and watching us through this show. A very important and interesting time. Thank you so much, Pooja, for being there. Dr. Tushar Shah, always for your time, efforts, and the energy that you put in. And Navneet, for always standing behind and getting us the show going through flawlessly. Ashok, thanks very much.
Very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Das Vidanya. Till we see you very soon.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Good night. Good night, everyone. Thanks so much.